Okay, all right, moving on to another topic. There were reports in the media this week of a cyber attack targeting Northern Minerals. That has been of interest to the media and commentators because Northern Minerals is also subject to an order of the Foreign Investment Review Board and the Treasurer to reduce the holding of a Chinese company. Now, I understand that since that initial media report, it's been clarified that this is an attack that occurred in March and has only just been publicised, so it may not be directly connected to the order of the Treasurer being publicised. But what can you tell us about what ASD knows about this attack?
So we'll just be very careful. It's extremely important to ASD that when we do talk publicly about cyber incidents, especially where they've impacted a private company, that we don't go beyond what the private company has said itself about the cyber attack. And the reason for that is it's extremely important that ASD maintain the confidence and trust of those entities collaborating with us on their cyber incident. But you are correct, Northern Minerals itself has said publicly that the cyber incident occurred at the end of March.
Okay, and I understand that a hacker who's claimed responsibility on the dark web is known as Bian Lian. I'm not sure if my pronunciation's great there, but I understand it's a Chinese criminal syndicate. Is that your understanding?
We have seen media reports of a dark web post by actors claiming to be associated with that ransomware gang. From an operational point of view, we've made no conclusions, and nor has any of the Five Eyes publicly linking that ransomware actor to any particular nation, as a matter of fact.
Okay. Do you have any information which suggests that this attack could be state-sponsored or sanctioned in any way?
Because we're still in the process of working with the company to understand from a technical artefacts perspective what has happened and what hasn't happened, and we're still in the process of collaborating with them on that, it's really too early for us to form any operational conclusions about who might have been behind it.
Sure, that's understandable. I ask because the rare earths sector, which this company is involved in, is highly geopolitically contested sector, and there have been other very credible reports of cyber attacks and disinformation campaigns involving other companies in this industry, and so that's not. There can also be criminal people just purely trying to make money, but it is suggestive that it's a potential explanation here. Okay. You can't comment on any further at that at the moment, which I understand, but I look forward to further clarity on that in due course. Just finally, the third topic I want to move on to, Chair, is the reported attack on Australian parliamentarians who are members of the Interparliamentary Alliance on China, including myself and other members of this committee. I acknowledge that there has been a private briefing to the affected MPs, which I want to place my gratitude on the public record for, and I understand that you will be more limited in what you can say in this forum than you're able to in that forum. But what can you tell me about that incident in this forum?
Yes, so ASD was advised of an attempted spearfishing incident against a number of members of the Australian Parliament, including members of this committee, in 2021, so at the time. We're also aware that IPAC itself did advise some members, and that the Department of Parliamentary Services, who owns the network, was also aware of the attempts at the time. At the time, ASD and other security agencies did confirm, working with the Department of Parliamentary Services, that it was a completely unsuccessful attempt.
Yep. So it's critical to have on the public record. It was an attempt but not successful in this instance. It has been attributed by the FBI and others to APT 31. Does ASD concur in that assessment?
Yes, we do.
What can you tell us about APT 31?
Would you like to?
APT 31 stands for Advanced Persistent Threat Actor Group and has been attributed by the United States and the United Kingdom to the PRC.
Yep. And there are certainly some kind of online assessments that make it even more specific than just the PRC. They go to the particular agency involved. Is that an assessment that ASD can share in this forum?
Senator, I'd prefer to take that on notice. Having said that, I would draw attention to the support which Australia gave to a UK government statement of attribution identifying malicious cyber activity by APT 31 and the PRC in relation to UK democratic institutions and parliamentarians. So that is an attribution to the PRC of APT 31, which has been made, which has been technically assured by ASD and supported by the Australian government. And at this stage, I would prefer to take any further attribution on notice.
Fair enough. I won't press any further on your assessment of APT 31, but I do want to explore this issue of the attribution, which you correctly point out Australia endorsed and participated in, but it was an attribution of an attack to the UK Parliament and parliamentarians, which we now know also involved Australian parliamentarians. Why was the decision made to endorse a public attribution about an attack on UK parliamentarians and not also, at the same time, attribute it to Australian parliamentarians?
I think the difference is...
Yeah, in the case of the UK Senator, that attack, I believe, was successful.
Right.
Whereas in the case of the attack that we had seen some years ago, or at least warnings of, or the intent to, that was unsuccessful.
And New Zealand has also publicly attributed an attack to their democratic institutions at the same time. I assume ASD's participation in that attribution also affirms support for New Zealand's decision to do so?
Yes, Senator.
Thank you. One of the issues with this attack is that members who were targeted in this unsuccessful attack at the time, including myself, weren't informed by ASD or any other agency in the Commonwealth about that. Has ASD reflected in any way on that, and would you approach it the same way next time?
Yes, we have, and we've provided assurances in the private briefing, and happy to do so publicly, that we've changed our standard operating procedures that guide those sort of operational decisions, and would absolutely advise you in the future.
Thank you. That's very welcome. Just finally, how would you characterise attacks on democratic institutions like this, parliaments, in the case of the UK, their electoral commission as well? How would you characterise that?
It's an interesting question. I mean, spearphishing is a pretty low-level, unsophisticated and sort of opportunistic attempt to try and get any person to engage with the content of an email and click on a link, and therefore sort of download some sort of malicious software which enables access to other things that they might be doing on their computer or device. So I would characterise this as pretty unsophisticated and opportunistic. And we do have a lot of advice on cyber.gov.au actually for all Australians about some of the simpler things they can do to try to not fall into this trap. And it's really important that people are mindful, particularly if they receive something that they weren't expecting, an email with a link in it, then unfortunately we have to all be a lot more suspicious than we perhaps had to be in the past. Yeah,
I'm grateful for that kind of assessment of the TTPs or the technical aspect of it, but I was more asking actually about the intent, the kind of intent behind targeting democracies and their democratic institutions.
Right, so this sort of activity I would put into the sort of classical bucket of espionage. So the purpose of it is to gain information that they wouldn't otherwise have access to about you, your activities, who you contact, how you engage, what you're looking at on the internet. So it's really an information gathering and espionage activity.
And do you have any message for parliamentarians about the fact that they're being targeted like this and what that means for us?
Well, ASD, with the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade and Home Affairs, have publicly attributed activity to the People's Republic of China 3 times this year already.
Yep.
I think we really encourage and unfortunately advise all members of Parliament, people of high profile, that unfortunately you are more likely to be the target of a state actor, and they are very interested and voracious in their appetite in collecting intelligence about you and your activities. And I think that activity is growing in its scale.
Thank you. You've been so efficient in your answers. I think I can slip in the 4th topic very quickly in my remaining time. And you've just referred to it in your previous answer, which is the number of attributions that ASD's joined in to PRC actors. And of particular interest to me is the Volt Typhoon attribution and targeting critical infrastructure. Particularly of interest to me is the fact that you've done so on more than one occasion for Volt Typhoon and critical infrastructure. Having done so once already, what was the rationale for doing it again?
Senator, actually there are a series of advisories which have been on Volt Typhoon, which
I might be underquoting them.
Sorry,
I might be underquoting them. I'm not giving them due credit.
Well, in fact, the series began last year.
Yes.
What we have attempted to do is to fulfil the full suite of our functions under Section 7 of the Intelligence Services Act, which is to continue to provide advice and assistance to all Australian entities. So the series actually increasingly adds additive advice or technical advice hunt guides to assist critical infrastructure entities and private entities to detect anomalous behaviour which might be associated with Volt Typhoon on their own networks. I might add, Senator, that we have conducted over 100 briefings with literally hundreds of technical folk from private entities on how to use each one of these advisories as well.
I should be more clear about my question. There was an attribution in May last year to Volt Typhoon and one again in February this year. It's a big decision to make an attribution. It's not something ASD does all the time. And what I really was getting at is you wouldn't lightly issue 2 attributions within 12 months about a single actor unless there was very good reason to do so.
I beg your pardon, Senator. I understand that this is very serious type of pre-positioning, which is not associated with espionage, but in fact associated with pre-positioning for the purpose of disruptive impacts,
including sabotage.
Yes, that is the public-facing evidence of very senior US officials.
And so the gravity of the implications of that is part of the rationale for why ASD is now repeatedly publicly attributing it, and as you say, providing technical advice to critical infrastructure operators and others of how to identify this presence on their networks.
Yes, Senator.